just when we think we're about to come out of it, we start getting stories like it's going to peak in September. So meaning the worst hasn't come yet. So I can imagine what an entrepreneur is feeling right now, just as they were bracing themselves for the worst is just behind us. Let's talk recovery. Someone starts telling you the worst is yet to come. And so any tips, any advice that people can get right now is very, very welcome. And this is especially true for entrepreneurs because the country is going to rely a lot on entrepreneurs for the economy to recover. And even during COVID itself, things that we thought we couldn't do before, suddenly the entrepreneurs in Kenya stepped up. So if there's one bunch of people that we want to protect right now, it's definitely the entrepreneurs. I'm connected with them in the sense that I'm a business school lecturer. I did a PhD in organizational management. My undergrad was in economics and master's, but then I went into studying entrepreneurs from a psychological perspective. So I was looking at what makes them do what they do, and especially social entrepreneurs, what gives them the ability to find such deep meaning and purpose in the things that they do. And I just love the way they use their business skills and apply them to solve some of the world's greatest problems that not even governments and other people have been able to do. But they give up their careers and dive into entrepreneurship with the idea of solving a problem. So that's where my connection comes with entrepreneurs. They're a group of people that I've been studying for several years. I hang out with them, and much as I may say I'm studying them, they are influencing me too. So I'm learning a lot just being with entrepreneurs. I love their courage, their ability to go where nobody else would dare, to leave the safe zone of employment, to just go where naysayers are telling them it's impossible, can't be done, and their creativity, their ability to actually find a solution. So even if we didn't have this session, if I was to take a bet, I would bet that the entrepreneurs would survive. Why? Because they're so creative and they'll figure it out. But they need a hand up. If someone can give them a pointer, then they'll figure it out a lot quicker. They'll get there sooner. And that's what we hope that this session will do. So Kevin's team, Strathmore Business Club, has put together this amazing panel, quite diverse. And so we're going to look at COVID and the economy and entrepreneurship from several different angles, all of them very relevant to any single entrepreneurs. You know, the expertise that they're bringing here will help you no matter what your business line is. These are angles that you simply have to look at. I was really agonizing on how to arrange, how to introduce them, like, shall I make it alphabetical? And it actually worked out because no matter what I do alphabetically, whether it's first name or last name, they come in the same order. So whether it's John Karani because J comes before Pius and Sunny, that's the way it's gonna be. If it's K for Karani, then it still comes before Muchiri and Vikram. No matter what I do, they fall in the same order. So don't blame me for the order in which I'm going to introduce you. So I'm going to start with Pius Muchiri, who is smiling at you from a beautiful garden with the sky in the background and the clouds. And he has the unlikely name of John the Beloved Disciple. Those of you who came late, you missed the story. Too bad. It'll serves you right for coming late. You can ask him later how he acquired the name. But those of us who know. So John is the board chairman of Uchumi. We all know Uchumi, the biggest supermarket chain in the country, if not East Africa. And he also happens to be just recently elected the board chair of the Kenya Insitute of Supplies Management. So he's been in the business of supply chain in several countries and has like 27 years of experience in this field. And we want to see things moving. That's what all entrepreneurs want to see. And he's bringing his expertise to the table. So you will meet him in a couple of minutes. And then Next in line, alphabetically, whether by first or last name, is Pius Muchiri. Mugo, whether you call him Mugo or Muchiri, it's still gonna end up in the same alphabetical place. It's amazing. So Pius is an economist and also an accountant, and he's gone into private equity, lots of experience in different sectors, but applying finance to different sectors. So he's bringing that versatility from the healthcare sector when he was with AAR to, you know, Centum. He's just got a lot of experience. And right now he's the managing director of Nabo Capital, who are doing a lot of amazing stuff for the entrepreneurs. So if you're looking at the finance side, where do you get your money as an entrepreneur? Pius is here and we can direct all those questions to him. And then last but not least, we have Sunny Vikram. So Sunny, you're like me, you know, I'm called Vincent and Ogutu, and no matter what I do, I always come at the end alphabetically, you know, so I understand. So now Sunny is very, very experienced in tax, and he's been working, doing deals in East Africa. He's worked for PwC both in London and here in Nairobi, here in East Africa. So he's a director in the tax division of PwC. And this is something that all of us are looking at. You know, what are the tax implications of the different transactions that I get into? Am I going to get any tax breaks? Will I swim or will I drown? And he's here to help us with those questions. So with that brief introduction, I want to just dive in. So the last shall be first. So we'll start with you, Sunny. How's COVID treating you? Like, how has it affected you personally?
Thanks, Vincent. So, I mean, at a personal level, it's a happy, sad kind of a situation because I've sort of been confined at home for the last 6 or so weeks. I think the office is not encouraging people to go to the office, but essentially try and work from home as much as possible. So what I'm missing is really my colleagues, and I mean, we are social beings, so getting confined in one sort of almost solitary space is not ideal for long periods of time. But then on the family front, I think it's been excellent because I've got 2 young kids, and I get to spend quite a lot of time with them, even if it's 5 minutes once in a while. And I think that's been really rewarding, and probably eating a lot healthier because I'm eating homemade food as opposed to from all over the place. And yeah, I do get a chance to go for a jog these days. I mean, the time that I'm saving in traffic is what I'm actually applying to at least get some exercise. So yeah, so I think happy, sad. Now, what I'll do post-COVID, I actually don't know. And let's see how things go. Yeah.
Great. I actually resonate with that, Sunny. I don't know whether to be sad or happy about this COVID business. I'm actually working a lot harder than I normally do personally. Lots of Zoom meetings. And that part, you know, maybe I don't want to continue post-COVID. But in terms of healthier lifestyle, I used to run once every 2 weeks until March, you know, for 20 minutes, just in order to get it off my conscience and tick the box. Like, I did some exercise. You can't fault me for going for more than 2 weeks. But now I'm running 3 times a week. And it's great. I've joined my friends who are in our running WhatsApp group. We encourage each other. So it's interesting how it's affecting all of us. What about you, Pius? How is COVID treating you? Is this bad news, good news? Are you happy, sad?
Wow, it's a very difficult question to answer in the few minutes that you're giving me, but I will attempt. I think for me, the best analogy I can give about COVID is a question that we have faced before. How do you boil a frog? And you've got to put the frog in cold water and then keep heating until suddenly to discover it's being cooked. And for me, COVID has been like that. Every day it's unfolding. We thought COVID is a one-day affair, 2 weeks affair. And now, as you can see behind me, I have a home office. I don't think this home office is going anywhere, to be honest. So the thing is, when I remember when this whole COVID was hitting, I was in Austria, 1st of March this year. And I was just meeting various investors, trying to attract them to come invest in Africa. And I wrote an email to my conversation. It was just picking up around that time. And the heading of my email was, what do you think about this COVID-19 gift? I called it the COVID-19 gift. And it took a couple of days for me to get a response. But by the time I landed here, about 2 weeks after that, things were really thick. And first of all, I was put in quarantine, and we had to make some difficult, bold decisions with the team, even though we couldn't meet face to face. So one, staff engagement has gone up through the roof. Number two, there's nothing like work-life balance. Your family and your work, they have now blended, and you're finding a balance which we should live with. So for me, this is a gift. This is a COVID-19 gift. Today we were speaking somewhere, and someone said COVID-19 is affecting everyone. What will make a difference is how you respond to it. So what choices are we making? So one of the choices I'm making is I have a permanent home office now. It's going to take something very serious to get me out of the house, because I have discovered I'm more productive here. We did a survey last week for our teams, and it came out 67% of our staff said that their productivity has gone up. And another 20% say it has not changed. So we have every reason to continue doing what you're doing and to build on this. People are happier, and then stress level has gone up because the engagements are high. So for us, I think it's a positive thing. And this is the time to shift gears. This is a time to do things that before you didn't have time to do. I have a lot of time to think. And occasionally you might see my son, by the way, coming here and give me a hug or give me a peck. And we continue as if this is the way it's supposed to be. It's not unusual. We've accepted it. So it's a good thing. I know there are negatives around it, but at the end of this period, I think there will be a lot of positives to pick up and build on.
Wow, Pius, I guess you must be a natural optimist. Everyone's calling COVID a curse. You just called it a gift. That's truly amazing. And by the way, I love your home office. I was just thinking, no, this is fake. This is a background. In fact, I'm even tempted to ask you to touch the flower vase and hold it up in front to prove that it's not a fake background. So maybe at some point you can humor me by reaching for the vase and holding it out. But yeah, we love your positivity, and a lot of entrepreneurs who are not working solo but have partners or they have employees are going to need that advice from you. How the heck did you get your people to become more engaged during COVID? We need to know that secret. So hold that question. We're going to come back to it. And now we go to John. So John is in a beautiful, beautiful location. I think the answer for you is COVID was good, right?
Absolutely. It's been a blessing really in disguise. And as Pius has said it correctly, there's a silver lining in every crisis that we come through in life. And for us, it had been a bit of a challenge to get my institute, where I just got elected as chairman, getting to engage members more. They were not able to call members or get members to do things that we wanted them to do. But with the advent of COVID, people were in the office. People were actually making calls. physically. And the members were saying, I've never received a call before from my professional body. They are calling me because I come in from a private sector experience. I was in Coca-Cola for many years. So we are a customer facing background. I come to this institute, which is almost a public body. And because people are so busy chasing so many things that we were not able really to touch, we're not connecting really. We're calling our members when we want them to pay for their membership fees. We're calling our members when we want them to register for their training. Now we are calling to find out, how are you doing? How can we add value to you? How can we, what training needs analysis? So there's a new sense of customer service that is, and connectivity. Even though we are online, we are actually connecting more with our customers. So it's made us think beyond the normal norm, because I can assure you there's been a tectonic shift. We cannot go back and say that we'll go back to business as usual. It'll be wrong to keep thinking that we're just waiting to wear out this COVID, let it come to an end, we go back to our business, we go back to our lives. We used to do trainings for members, like say in hotels, 200, 300 people. I don't think that will happen again. That might be a very rare thing. So we are shifting our thinking. How can we engage our members, train our members, keep our training material relevant in this new platform that we're operating in? But there's a more personal thing for me, and I think you alluded to that, is actually, I told you I'm a man of faith. And the biggest challenge for me in terms of that arena is church. Who would have thought that they will close churches? But at the church where I am an assistant pastor, the church is closed. We are not able to engage members. We're not able to talk to members. We're not able to preach to members. So we are using, some of them may not have that, not like Kevin, young Kevin, who are tech savvy. You can connect to them on Zoom. They are not reachable except on a call. So we are in this arena of saying, how do we engage our members in this arena where we are not able to meet physically? So for me, that's been the kind of the sad part of it, that we're not able to go to church and get the vibes and get the praises. But on the other hand, it has made me bring that church home. In my family now, we got our own small church, and my kids who are not that churchy are now gathering together. We pray together, and we have a small church at home. And so we are growing kind of stronger spiritually as a family, more connected to God. So that connectivity for the spiritual aspect, and from a professional aspect in terms of where I work, and also in terms, you alluded to Chumi earlier on. I'm challenging my people to Chumi, go online, look for online solutions to give your customers the service that they need. So it's been a real wake-up call, and more than anything, it has adapted all of us, has helped us to adapt to this new reality, because this is going to be the new reality and the new normal. And I am so happy that it has caught me in a phase where I am able to adapt, and I'm not yet fixed in my ways, and able to make my team members also adapt to this new operating environment. So very positive in that sense. Are you there, Vincent? Hello? 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 Hi, Vincent. Am I alone?
John,
Can you hear me? Did I disappear?
Yes, we can hear you.
Correct. So I think I'm done, Vincent. I think Vincent is gone.
I think there's a problem with his connection, so perhaps we'll just we'll wait for things to get back on track. Yeah.
So at least it's not me. Huh?
Sorry, guys, I dropped off there, but I'll try and switch to data in a few minutes. But right now it seems to be back. So John, I must say, I just love you guys. You're all so positive. You're taking this COVID affair so well. And John, since you said that what you regret is that you can't get to church, but then you've got your own little flock at home. who are
Yes.
growing spiritually under you. So if I'm allowed to make a quote myself, if you remember when Jesus was speaking to the Samaritan woman, so he told her, a day is coming when you shall neither worship in Jerusalem, nor on this mountain, nor in any temple, but in your heart. So maybe that day has come, and COVID is helping you realize you can find spirituality right where you are.
Very
you know,
true.
you don't go to a physical place to be in touch with your inner self and with a higher being like God. You know, you can do it right where you are. So, gentlemen, I think Kevin will need a lady next time on the panel. So, gentlemen, if you could tell me, what is the current situation of the economy? How badly hit are we? Just how bad is it? Can any of you just take that question from your perspective, what you're seeing? How badly hit are we from COVID? Pius, do you want to go for that? Because you're dealing with a lot of businesses, like many different businesses coming to you. What are you seeing out there?
Yeah. Okay, let me give a background. First and foremost, COVID is a global health crisis. Okay. And we are facing an enemy who is very contagious or infectious and very quickly, invisible enemy. And because of that, all of us are in our homes, and very few people are actually reporting to their usual workstation. I have fueled my car only once since I was quarantined. So what at the core of COVID, in financial sense, it has disrupted demand. Yeah, people are not consuming the way they were consuming before, and to a very big extent. Other than essentials, I think our budget now is just about supermarket. All the other things are falling off. So when you economic stimulus and putting extra dollars in his hands, the opportunity to spend is actually what is really missing. Because spending requires social interaction, requires people to transact, at least in the world that we used to know before COVID. So that has quickly translated to, or is still translating to, a global financial crisis. And globally, IMF and World Bank, if I may quote them because they are authoritative institutions, they are projecting that the global economy is going to shrink or contract by about 3%, negative 3%. Sub-Saharan Africa, for the first time in 25 years, is also projected to contract by about 1.6%, so or negative 1.6% growth 2020. And because we are in Africa, we are vulnerable differently to this COVID-19 shock. So at the top of that list are what you call oil-dependent economies. Nigeria is one notable economy, and it is the largest economy in the continent. And this has been a double whammy for oil-dependent economies, because oil has gone to, my goodness, zero, and COVID-19 is still on their backs. So they are expected to have a much worse economic shock than the rest of us. Then we have another second bucket that is called the resource-dependent economies. And South Africa, which is the second largest economy in Africa, is in this bucket. Is here, and a couple of others. Quite a number of countries are here. The third bucket is what you call the non-resource-dependent economies, and Kenya appears here. And there are 6 metrics World Bank has used. One is susceptibility to global financial conditions, change in terms of trade, preparedness of the healthcare system, which, by the way, almost all of us are on the red. To be honest, it's a wonder that Africa has only reported the number of cases that it has reported. But our healthcare system is nowhere near those developed economies, and we are completely unprepared for it. And therefore, it's really, truly, and using John the Beloved words probably, it's truly by the grace of God that Africa has fared this far. Otherwise, much worse was expected. So from an economic point of view, this has already been declared a recession year. Okay. Now that, of course, snowballs a couple of things. Number one is there has been an immediate market meltdown globally and locally. Average haircut on investor wealth is in the region of 24% to 30%, just around February and compared to today. And therefore it's been rough. Whether it is equities, whether it is fixed income, whether it is private equity, anywhere, there has been nowhere to hide your money the last couple of months other than going to gold. The guys who took advantage and then split this and maybe went into sophisticated instruments like derivatives. So from a market perspective, it's also been a bloodbath. Then you go to sectors and economies, sectors of the economies, companies, all have had different variations of impact. At the top of the list is really all companies, sectors of the economy that are dependent on migration of people. Call it hospitality, aviation, anything that requires people to move around has shut down, literally shut down, and therefore those their incomes were cut, they disappeared immediately, and therefore the pilots, the staff airlines, all of them have already taken significant pay cuts. Then you have another group of companies and sectors of the economy that you call laggards. The financial sector, I think, will be feeling that impact as we move along. NPLs are anticipated. When I say NPLs, non-performing loans, anticipated to peak this year, next year, as long as this COVID environment. And this is the thing, Vincent. It is no longer about making money. It's no longer about bottom line. It's about surviving. It's about surviving as a people. So even the private sector has come to this notion that, you know what, we need each other to survive. We need each other to succeed. So there's a lot of concession, give and take, customer to the customer, and also the customer to the business. We need all of us to survive, and therefore profitability has been thrown out of the window, and it's just about surviving. So we'll see the lagging effect of this in a couple of months. And then you have what you'd call resilient parts of the economy, and maybe telecom sector is one of them that really comes to mind. And this is because today, even as we are talking on this platform, many of you are hooked on probably some Safaricom home fiber, and therefore that economy was the most, or that sector of the economy was the most digitized, and was sort of ahead in this leap towards home working, and therefore they will be affected to some extent, but they'll keep almost 100% of their customers. And the only thing that they are losing is really the concession that they're giving to their customers. But in terms of having active customers, they are keeping almost all their customers. So let me stop there so I give the others opportunity. But it sort of gives you a global view and bring it home to our country.
Yeah, so Pius, thanks for a very, very comprehensive summary of the state of the economy. From what I gather, it's pretty bad. So we're actually contracting. So we're moving in the opposite direction of where we'd want to go with growth and growing business. It's moving in the exact opposite direction. So Sunny, if you could weigh in on this, on the state of the economy, maybe perhaps even helping us see, going a bit deeper into who the winners are, who the losers are. Is there some stuff that's happened that is irreversible at this point? And what are your views on the economy?
Thanks, Vincent. I'm not sure I got everything, but I think I got the winners and losers bit and what is irreversible, right? Yeah.
Yeah, what is irreversible? Who are the winners? Who are the losers?
Right. So really, I mean, I think I won't reiterate what Pius has just said about the state of the economy. I think just to add from a deal environment perspective, I mean, we are increasingly seeing a lot of deals being put on hold, with a number of buyers opting for a wait and see strategy as opposed to going into something that no one really knows how anyone is going to come out of. Yeah, business models are going to change, so quite a lot of uncertainty at the moment, which is affecting deal activity in the market as well. In terms of, I mean, who the real winners are, I think yes, there could be certain winners at a sectoral level, but overall, I think what I can comment on is really who's fared better than others, right? Or who's probably done better than others. And these are organizations that have in the past invested in some sort of crisis management plan, business continuity management plans, because they've been able to adapt quite easily to the changing dynamic in terms of even how we work. Yeah. The whole use of cloud systems to be able to access data. So there are organizations that have actually been able to make this transition quite seamlessly compared to others, especially SMEs. I mean, just when this crisis was, I mean, when we were starting to feel the impact of this crisis in our local market, I mean, I do recall speaking to a number of investors in the SME segment who were saying, I mean, they've literally had to come up with a plan overnight on how they're going to manage this transition, because they could not fathom a situation where their people cannot actually come to work, or only a fraction of their workforce can actually come to work. So a lot of people have really had to build up some sort of plans overnight. And also, I mean, those companies that have invested in technology, of course, have obviously fared a lot better than what you'd find others. In terms of sectors, I think, as Pius mentioned, of course, you find the information and communication segment may not be that much affected, so they might still be doing pretty well compared to some of the other segments such as hospitality, tourism. And the issue with tourism is that the impact on tourism might actually be even slightly more long-term compared to once the country comes out of it, depending on what the impact at a global level might be. Because if you look at some of the key markets where we get our tourists from, they are actually quite significantly impacted by COVID, by the COVID pandemic. So definitely the winners, I would say, or those who are doing pretty well at a sectorial level, would be information, communication. You see the likes of Netflix, who are struggling to get content in order, the likes of Glovo, Amazon, who are having a field day. I mean, I was reading recently that the Amazon owners' net worth is about, or has already crossed $1 trillion. So that's quite amazing how this is working out for some of these technology companies. Yeah, but look, I mean, the losers: hotels, accommodation providers, restaurants. Now it's not even clear how many are going to come back. after this lockdown. People's attitudes have changed. I'm not sure I want to be in a crowded place for some time now. So I'm sure there are a lot of other people like me out there. So airlines and so I mean, I've seen that based on some of the tax measures that the government also introduced, especially around the EPZ space, I could sense that even the export-oriented businesses are actually having a bit of a struggle because of the disruption in the supply chain, because the government recently allowed quite a number of EPZ companies to actually start supplying their produce locally. What that tells me is that there's a real struggle to get produce out of the country. So those, I think, are some of I would say sectors that have actually been impacted quite significantly. Yeah.
Thank you, Sunny. And in fact, in giving us the answer, you were providing some lessons already that we can draw from this. So from your experience, the companies that are surviving better right now are those who already had a disaster plan. They had already invested in technology. They already had their information in the cloud. So it was easy for them to transition to working from home and working online, compared to those who now had to scramble and get all those things in place. So it reminds me of that expression, fortune favors the prepared. So it's not like, Lady Luck will smile on just anyone. It'll smile on the one who was prepared. And then the other expression that it reminded me of is never let a good crisis go to waste. So we have a crisis right here. What are the lessons we're learning? Because if we are to survive the next stage or to be ready for the next thing, we should be learning now and preparing now. So if I'm to take that lesson away, the takeaway that you've given us is just always be prepared, always be looking ahead, anticipating, and getting ready for that. And now I want to turn to you, John, again on the state of the economy before we move into the next big segment, which is what lies ahead. Some people might even claim that your sector is among the winners, that people rushed to supermarkets and stockpiled and hoarded, and that in fact maybe you're doing really well right now. So I don't know if that's true, A, and then B, from your position, actually see which goods are moving and which ones are not. So you have a good kind of overview of the fast consumer moving goods in Kenya. Like basically you also have an overview of different sectors, different kinds of production. So is it true that you're benefiting? And then two, do you know which sectors are moving goods and which ones are dead right now?
Thanks, Vincent. And I think Sunny put it quite well in terms of alluding to the sectors that are kind of winning. Now, apart from what Sunny referred to as the Safaricoms of this world, the people already on a digital platform, the retail sector indeed has to some extent gained, and you'll see that the focus has mainly been, and somebody still has to tell me this, toilet papers of all the things. I don't know whether you ever heard of toilet papers running out in some places. I have no clue why toilet papers became such a fast-moving good. I think it's got to do with that. But consumer goods, foodstuffs have become the key thing that people are targeting for. But from where I see it also, as a supply chain expert, the supply chain has been broken. The supply chain has been broken from the source market in terms of where we operate from, our source market for input material. When you think about supply chain, you have to look at input, transformation, and then output. The input countries for most of the goods that we get into Africa and Kenya specifically are from China. Well, China is claimed to be the factory of the world, actually. 70% of exports actually out of China into the world or into Africa. Africa being a net importer of goods and services has been really hit by that break in that chain. So the link between our source market in terms of our input equation has broken, but the link in terms of our output also, which is basically our market where we ship our finished goods, not really finished goods because we are really a raw material supplier more than anything. where we ship, for instance, flowers in Europe, in Amsterdam, Netherlands, one of the biggest market, UK, that's also been cut. So you can see the ripple effect of that fallout in terms of the supply base in China has had a ripple effect in terms of our manufacturing ability and therefore our ability to send out any finished goods into the outside market in terms of our exportability. So in a nutshell, it tells you this link in the supply base, in the supply chain, because it's all demand and supply. But as soon as you have lost a bit of the linkage from your source market into your output market, already you got a ripple effect in terms of the local market now. We don't have enough goods moving around to move. Even you go, some supermarkets are already losing out, by the way. Some goods are already getting out of the shelves. In Europe, for instance, the shelves are empty because they depended on Africa or or South America for the inputs into their supermarkets. So the key things that are going to be the focus, green groceries. That's why you got a company like a friend of mine called Peter and John just started a company called Trigger Foods. And he set a partnership recently with Jumuiya. That tells you something that's moving. That's what's moving, by the way. Survival mode, food, people. That's the crisis that we're going to have to watch next. And if we in Africa, and I know that's going to be your next question, how can we do to prepare for the next wave? Are we going to have enough food to feed ourselves first? Because that's going to be the pandemic that will follow if we are not ready in the next wave. So in a nutshell, Vincent, I can say that the foodstuffs are the things that have been moving, and that is where we need to focus our energies as Africa and as Kenyans. How can we grow enough food to feed ourselves and to feed the rest of the world?
Thank you for that perspective, John. And you've once again pointed out the interconnectivity of the world. It's not just from a healthcare perspective where a virus can actually cross borders and shut the whole world down. We are that connected, but it's also from an economic point of view. If you're depending on inputs from another country, if they shut down, you shut down too. So this is something we'll have to address if we are not to fall prey to another pandemic or another world crisis. How do we overcome this interconnectivity problem that we have? Previously, we looked at it as a good thing, but now we're seeing the flip side of it. So panelists, if we could quickly address what people can do for the future. So I want us within 10 minutes to wrap up that conversation and then open it out for questions. Right now, we're trying to look at, we've seen how bad the situation is. We want to prepare for the future. So Sunny, you were talking of preparedness. So what can we do? What lessons are we learning now? What could entrepreneurs focus on if they are to survive now and if they are to thrive in the post-COVID era? What advice do you give them? What should we be learning? Who wants to go first? Sunny, you seem ready. Go for it.
So, well, yeah. So maybe I'll just mention a few, and then the others can contribute as well. Yeah. I think for me, what really stands out that people need to start focusing a lot more is on automation. Automation and technology will actually help us avert a similar crisis going forward. I know there can be quite a lot of resistance towards automation at a pretty fast, if it moves at a pretty rapid pace. But that is where we are. 10 years down the road, our jobs are going to be completely different from what they are now. Yeah. So we've got to embrace automation as quickly as we can, because that will sort of help us deal with some of the hiccups that we've faced as a result of this crisis. The second item I would sort of I would sort of focus on is really looking at our supply chains and saying, are we too dependent on certain global markets? Is there an alternative to those markets? Is there a local market, or is there a local supplier that we can tap that can at least ensure that we've got supplies coming through whenever there's some sort of a disruption of this scale, or even a smaller scale? Yeah. So really, for me, I think the learning as well as the opportunities that I would say entrepreneurs can look at is around automation and technology, and really looking at supply chains to see, fine, let's see what alternative is out there. I mean, as opposed to what we're doing right now. Yeah.
Excellent suggestions, Sunny. So let's think of automation, and let's think of supply chains and the dependence we have due to this interconnectivity. Should we be looking at a local market, East African market? You know, what is there an untapped market that we're not focusing on right now? What about you, Pius? How can we survive now? And how can we prepare for the post-COVID era, whatever that looks like?
Thank you, Vincent. I think the biggest opportunity is in our mindset, not in the things that are happening around us. And first and foremost, I don't think we are reversing back to where we were. I think we are going to build on to the gains of COVID-19. There are very clear gains there is a lot of realization. People are asking themselves, why do we need the offices that we've always recognized, that have always been associated with us? Is PwC the physical building, or is it Sunny, Vikram, and the people who are seated in their homes? Today, it's very clear in my mind that Nabo Capital is the people seated in their homes and not those buildings. So there's a very big mental shift. So if it's demand for space, I've got to think about this going forward. I think what we used to call our BCP plan before COVID has now become we need to draw up new disaster recovery plans, because this is a new normal. We thought all our BCP processes were put together with a mindset that this will be a 2-week thing maximum, or a 1-week thing, and then we revert back to normal. But we have found we're in a situation whereby the vaccine or the natural immunity could be 12 to 18 months away. So we'll have changed our behaviors almost permanently. So that's one. So the second thing that I want to say is, so there is going to be a lot of risk mindset in doing business going forward. People are always going to start with the question, how do we survive if we are hit by a crisis like the one we just experienced? So very strong risk mindset. Number two is engagements. I was just looking at the numbers here. There are 114 people who are logged in just a couple of minutes ago. We are speaking to 114 people to do what you're doing right now, Kevin and team. Before, we would have had to endure traffic and all manner of inconveniences to engage 114 people. So going forward, people are going to seriously consider how they engage with one another. Yes, there's going to be physical meetings, but the physical meetings will not just be, can we meet up? If it can be done virtually, it will be done virtually. That is going to continue going forward. Number three is, everybody is thinking about how do we sort out our own supply and demand challenges. China, who was a big supplier to all of us, once cut off, we all feel the pain. Tanzania, Uganda is feeling the pain. So countries are going to be asking themselves, how do we survive on our own, first and foremost? So the world was already moving, attempting to shift backwards from globalization to protectionism. So we might see tendencies for governments to protect their own economies so that they can be able to survive on their own if they're called to. So even if you produce substandard things locally, there might be incentives to keep going through that process of growth and getting finer and finer goods and services. Finally, I'd say new business models. There's going to be new business models. Will audit firms operate the way they were operating before? Will airlines operate the way they were operating before? Will investment firms operate the way they were operating before? I was having an interview with the CEO of Nairobi Securities Exchange and his team. And today, transactions are being done from people's homes. And we have a daily turnover of, on average, $10 million. People's homes. We've moved from, the red-suited guys on the floor. We went to the ATS board, and now that is further decentralized to people's homes. So business models are going to change, and digitization is going to be at the center of it. So for me and the people who are listening, this is my advice to everyone. We've got to raise our ambitions. In this COVID-19, we've got to raise our ambitions. Are you average or are you extraordinary? In a digital world, business can be wiped out in a very quick manner. Scale and size and brand will no longer be big competitive advantages because of this ability to interact very quickly. If you want to access the president today, it is easier than before because you only need to put on a link and he clicks on that link and you click on that link and that's it. Before, I would have had to be introduced by so many people. So interactions and networking is going to change quite a bit. So change of mindset, raise your ambition to extraordinary, not average businesses. Thank you.
Thanks, Pius. I mean, your parting words make me think of the words, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. So we have to rise up to this challenge. We're not going to sit down and be defeated by it. But rising up to the challenge means we have to question the assumptions of how the world works, how economies work, and then change the way we think, change our mindset. So what previously was obvious is no longer going to work that way. So we have to go back to those particular assumptions we had of how businesses work. You talked of business models and how we engage with people. Is it through space or is it virtually? So new ways of engagement. And then you talked about disaster plans that you had, business continuity plans. But if they're contingent on something that you have no power over, like when is a vaccine going to be found, then isn't that the same as sitting down and giving up and saying, I can't do anything until somebody else does something? So for you to actually survive in a situation like that, you have to decide that I have the power to do something that will impact me. I can't wait forever for the environment to change. So coming to you, John, how can we survive? What is the future like? What should we do?
So I'll sum it up in one acronym, Vincent, that I think we're all familiar with. We're living in a VUCA world. VUCA means, I think you all know it, volatile world. The volatility is a reality of where we are now. Uncertainty is the U in that acronym. And complexity is a C. And then, of course, ambiguity. And the era of thinking that things are running in a straight line is gone. So we have to rethink our mindset. All the teams here, my background is really economics, but I became a supply chain person. So I think what both Sunny and Pius have alluded to is supply chain mindset change. So in this era, this VUCA world, this VUCA reality that we are living in, how do we rethink our supply chain model? How do we rethink our manufacturing model? I can tell you that the dependency on the import model of China is gone. And now we are facing another existential threat. Our neighbors are locking up their borders. So I was privileged recently to be part of a discussion where they were thinking about within Kenya, how can we, Vincent, you alluded to being an economist too, the economics of comparative advantage. How can each region within Kenya, say the coastal region, can they focus on growing cashew nuts and the coconuts and macadamia, and then they create a market of those goods in Nairobi, for instance. Another territory may be growing avocado or growing some other fruit, and then starting within our own sphere of influence, because Kenya is what we have right now. We don't know whether Tanzania will be a market tomorrow, or Uganda, or the rest of it. How can we create our own homegrown inputs and then grow our own processing and then grow our own outputs and then grow our own market? So it's all about supply and demand. All the thing that opened up the market in the global market in the first place was really supply and demand. Now, it does not mean that we have exhausted our local demand. I can tell you that, for instance, most of our goods were always exported. The tea that I grow in my farm, all of it was literally going to the factory, and then they exported to the export market. We are left with just small bits of it. I know, granted, we cannot grow it all together and consume it all together, but can we create that capacity and capability to add value to our own production, to our own raw material? Because there'll be nobody taking it anytime soon. And by the time the world opens up, because I believe it will open up sooner or later, we'll have created the local capacity and capability to become a world-class production center. That's how China started. That's how South Korea started. I want to leave us with that model. Research the South Korean model. They went back and said, today we are at this stage. Kenya, South Korea, Thailand, the Asian tigers, we are all at the same level at independence. But today, our GDP is probably $1,000. South Korea is at $35,000+. What do they do differently? What can we learn from the South Korea model? They develop their own local industries. And those local industries today, I'm sure many of us will be familiar with LG, Samsung. They are global industries today. But what do? They went back to the drawing board. They thought long term. And instead of it, there will be always that necessity to survival mode. But we need to think longer term. How can we grow long-term capacity, capability for sustainability for our economies? That's what we need to be thinking about.
Thank you very much, John, for helping us look at the Chinese model, because we all know that they came from somewhere where they were roughly at the same position as we were. And look at them now. They are the second biggest economy. And really, in real terms, I think they are the biggest economy. If you factor in everything, not just the formal sector, but the informal sector as well, like total economics, they are clearly the biggest economy in the world today. And I remember reading a book that said that gone are the times when you just say made in China and then you laugh because you expect this is something that's going to break. It's cheap, but there's a reason it's cheap, which is it's substandard. So this book said that there are actually 3 types of Chinese producers. They're the ones who do make what you stereotypically think of as made in China, cheap, very cheap, but breakable, not lasting, low quality. Then there's very high quality, but domestic, just about to launch into the big time and go global. And then they're the ones who've gone global. So the difference between the ones who've gone global and the ones about to go global is very, very small. The quality is already there. It's just that they're serving the local market. So we need to look at the model they followed and see what we can do as entrepreneurs to serve the very same needs that our customers here have. They're importing, they're consuming all those goods that are out there. Why can't we produce them ourselves? So maybe that's the way forward that we're getting. So I want to open it up to the audience. So this is your moment. You've got these experts here and you've got issues that you're dealing with. So how can we help you? What can we do to bring clarity to what you're facing right now and to bring some hope as well? So who wants to go first? I'm going to take a look at the chats and maybe Kevin can curate this. If not, just feel free to put up your hand digitally, and we shall see who's put up their hands and they can go first. So who wants to go first?
I want to go first, actually.
Oh my gosh, okay, home ground advantage.
Yeah.
Off you go, Kevin.
Okay, so one theme that has come out quite evidently is the whole theme of we'll need to automate more to be able to cope with basically whatever is going to happen in the future. Yeah. But like this to me seems to present another issue. So it's like, okay, fine. We automate more. It's like great for people in STEM fields. But like, what happens to everyone else? Because the idea behind the enterprise essentially is that we're supposed to be creating value for the people. Yeah. I mean that's the underlying motif, and the idea of extreme automation, because I actually see that happening. So like I see us having some sort of industrial revolution 2.0, kind of thing, because of what's going on. But it doesn't seem obvious to me that everyone will be catered for, and especially because we have an expanding population. I mean, it's expanding a lot quicker than we've been able to handle it, at least until this point. And I mean, with the rapid automation, it doesn't seem obvious to me that, especially like with reference to creation of jobs, that most people will have something to do. I mean, like for people who are interested in things like, people in STEM, so science, technology, engineering, mathematics, like great for those people. But what happens to everyone else? What happens to people who have a proclivity towards the humanities, that sort of thing. So, yeah.
Okay, Sunny, I think you're the one who brought up automation. So are we taking humans out? Is that what you're doing?
Well, thanks for that question, Kevin. And really, I mean, that question keeps coming up quite often when you bring up the topic of automation and artificial intelligence, which is really gaining traction over the years. And PwC did actually a report, was it early this year or towards the end of last year, around the workforce of the future. And really it was to look at, I mean, how technology and AI would actually be complementary to humans as opposed to completely replacing humans. There is definitely some effort that needs to be put in, because we're not saying that automation will completely wipe out the role of human beings. It's just that it will actually change the sort of roles that we play in businesses. So when it comes to automation, the focus is largely on what are those methodical jobs, what are those menial jobs that can be automated, which would definitely add a lot more value to a business. But then, of course, there are those specific jobs that cannot be done by machines or artificial intelligence, especially the problem-solving jobs, the troubleshooting jobs that require some level of empathy and all. So there will always be room for human beings to excel, even if it's upon us to try and take full advantage of automation and artificial intelligence. And as individuals, what that means is you need to try and separate yourself from the job. Yeah. So you are different from the job, because the job will keep changing. So you as an individual need to have the agility to keep reinventing yourselves, so that you're ready for the market when it has changed as a result of automation and artificial intelligence coming in. As far as businesses are concerned, I think with businesses, almost adopt your employees to the extent that it's the person you've hired as opposed to someone to do a particular job, which means that businesses need to keep spending a lot more in training and retraining their staff, to ensure that as we are getting a lot of the digital and automation drive coming in, we're also continuously upskilling our people to be able to actually take on roles that we know technology may not be able to fulfill in the near to medium term. So yes, you could argue that yes, in the short run it might have an impact on employment and all, but I think there is some responsibility that individuals need to take to make sure they are upskilling as well and reskilling and being agile, and also businesses to ensure that they are also helping their workers and staff actually adapt to this to changes in technology and the drive towards automation.
I couldn't agree with you more, Sunny. And in fact, sometimes I feel pity for people who have to do work that can be automated when they could be doing much more interesting stuff. Michael Moore, you wanted to ask a question. Go for it.
Thank you for allowing me to ask this. I wanted to ask the future for developers. Now that you've spoken of automation, what future does Corona hold for developers who want to be entrepreneurs as well?
Okay, who wants to take that?
I'm not sure. Is it developers in what? In IT?
Yeah, in IT.
In technology? Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Let me maybe take that. One of the things that we as investment professionals always commit to do is to study and monitor trends, because investment is all about the future, and we are all on a race to have the best sneak preview about the future. The one who can predict the future is able to make the most investment returns for the investors. And one of the themes that you cannot fight today is the theme of digitization. And I know Sony has already spoken about automation, but the higher level of that is digitization. Okay, digitization. And allow me to give you an example. 2 years ago, we as a business, we made a decision to go digital, and we invited some digital experts to our business. And the first thing they asked me was, "Can I see your strategy, and where does digital fall in?" And I gave them. I stood up and I gave them a summary of our strategy, and I told them that I see digital as one of our channels for distribution. And when the person stood up, the digital expert stood up, said, "Pius, I want to correct you on something. I want you to stop from today seeing digital as one of your channels, but you see it as an existence." And my mind shifted immediately. What is happening today is digital existence, not digital channel, not a way of distributing. And you can't fight it. You can't fight it. The reason why all of us are on Zoom, I can almost swear to all of you that none of you have ever met any staff from Zoom. True? So,
that's true.
Isn't it? All of you use Uber, but most of you, if not all, have never met any from Uber. It's a form of existence, and that's where the world is moving. And you can't fight it. If you fight it, you're swimming upstream, not downstream. It is easier to swim downstream. So, coming to your question, Michael, the future for developers is so rich. If today I'm advising someone who is young in their career on what to pick and what will change, where they'll have the most impact going forward, the tech space and the development space is so much needed in this world that is going to be more digitized than ever before. Think about cybersecurity. This is probably going to be one of the most important careers going forward. So think about, developing commercial platforms. One of our businesses had to quickly transform and come up with a commercial platform to be able to reach their customers, yet it's a real estate business. So they realized if we continue doing things the way they were doing it before, they were going to die. So the only way to survive is to invade the customer in their home environment, like it is happening today, to interact with them there. They are not experts in this. They need people like you, Michael, and all the other guys who are doing whatever they're doing in developing their IT skills. But it's a huge career, very promising. And there are many many sectors, subsectors within that developing space. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Great. So I'm going to follow the order of the questions that came on the chat. Jacinta, would you like to come on? And in terms of a time check, we have about 40 minutes to go. So rapid fire questions, rapid fire answers. We want to get as many of you walking away with takeaways as we can. So over to you, Jacinta. What's your question? Okay. How about Ali? Ali, come on in. Or is Jacinta back?
Perhaps what I could do is I could just read out Jacinta's question.
Yeah, please read it out. Yeah.
So Jacinta asked, if we factor in SMEs, you might see that sometimes, if not most, technology is expensive and not easy to acquire. So how would you advise us to upskill and become sustainable? Would you like me to repeat the question, or you got it?
I think you just repeated.
Okay, so if we factor in SMEs, you might see that sometimes, if not most, technology is expensive and not easy to acquire. So how would you advise that SMEs upscale and become sustainable, despite the fact that technology is quite expensive and not the easiest thing to acquire? Yeah.
Okay, who wants to take a stab at that one? Technology is expensive, so how do we expect them to upscale?
I'm not sure. I'm avoiding to talk too much, but
no, go for it. Go for it.
But anyway, the thing is technology is actually cheaper than the alternative means. Look at advertisement media versus digital. You'll spend about 300,000 or about 10 seconds at prime. You'll spend the same 300,000 for a whole month or a couple of months to do the same thing on digital media. So technology is definitely making things a lot cheaper. And there are very many forms of doing this. If you look at one of the things that I've just discovered, if you go to Instagram today, you go to Facebook today, everybody has discovered they can actually voice out their products without having to hire anybody. That is zero cost. So it just depends on your demand for technology. And I'd say, I'd advise all SMEs, just cut your cloth according to your size. If you can't afford to hire anyone outside your business, just get your guys to do some informal training and put them in front of a camera. The first one may not be so good, then tomorrow it can get better and better. Eventually you get developers like Michael to come in and help you. But for me, I'd say just start. What you have is enough. And it has cost us nothing to be on this platform, but this is one way of being digitally present.
And Vincent, I'd just like to add to what Pius has said, and just to give an example that when we look at the cost of digitization or the cost of embracing technology, we sort of need to also look at it holistically together with the other costs that the business incurs as well. And I'll give you an example, and maybe these might be slightly extreme examples of. So I know of companies that are currently operating that literally do not have any office space for administration staff. Yeah. So what this means is they've actually set up very high-tech platforms to allow their staff to be able to interact with each other while they're still seated at home, which means that in as much as you're having to spend a bit to get that platform up and going, there could be other savings, synergistic savings that are coming on as a result of effectively trying to use technology. And what this crisis has taught us is we actually don't need to be in the office. Yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of other businesses now start looking at what sort of office space they're occupying and what they can do and to try and optimize it a lot better. Yeah. So I probably look at it in a slightly more broader context as far as affordability is concerned.
Okay, so there's something she has brought out, yeah. She's asked about technology with reference to manufacturing and staffing. So, for instance, you want to get into production, and I mean, you need to, you need to well construct a plant, and there's a lot of capital that goes into that kind of thing. And well, with what's happened with COVID-19, is perhaps going to be rapid automation that will happen after this. So, as someone in manufacturing, how do you keep up with that despite how capital intensive it is? So I think that's more of the question that she was trying to bring out. Yeah.
But I think the principles they've given still apply. If you look at it as an investment and you can compute what you're going to benefit by investing in it, then it becomes worthwhile. If there's a revenue stream at the end of that investment, then you go for it, even if it's expensive. And you can even figure out how to finance the acquisition of that technology because the revenue stream justifies it. So you just have to look at your revenue streams, and if it makes sense, think of it as an investment. Don't think of it as this mountain that, look, I wish wasn't there and is preventing me from advancing. So make it happen, finance it, if you see that there's a revenue stream coming forward. So I'd like to move to Philip. Philip, you have a question, and let's be quick. I want to get as many questions and answers as we can. So Philip.
Hi guys. So my question is with regard to the new tax rates which were mentioned by the president. So are the new tax rates supposed to encourage SMEs, or should SMEs be cautious when entering into business, in that the tax might again shoot up or something like that? Another question is, will tourism ever come back? Because there's no more people coming in and out of the country. So with tourism having contributing to a large part of the foreign exchange, will it ever come back again? Thank you.
Sunny, I think you're the tax man here.
Yeah.
You can't dodge this one.
Yeah, so in terms of the reduction in the tax rates that were announced, I think definitely very impressive. We sort of have the lowest corporate rate of tax in East Africa at the moment. And the same, I guess, would apply to the employment tax rates at a top line of 25%. So definitely very impressive. The idea was to create, to enhance spending power of corporations as well as individuals. To what extent that will have an impact? I mean, that's still, we're still waiting to see that, because in addition to these measures, a number of other measures were passed that would effectively make cost of investment a lot more expensive for businesses that are coming in. So on balance, I would say, well, at the moment, it's pretty positive that you will probably have a lot more money in your pocket as a result of the reduction in tax rates, which of course the government expects you to plow back in your business. In addition to that, I know that the government has released quite a lot of VAT refunds that were owed to businesses to the tune of almost 13 billion. And the government is actually on the verge of repaying quite a lot of, or paying quite a lot of bills as well. So overall effect, I think, create enough liquidity in the market to ensure that there is money circulating, which definitely, in as much as benefits the larger corporates and all, has a similar impact on small and medium enterprises as well. I don't want to go into a lot of the other tax measures that are coming unless there's a specific question around it. Yeah.
Thanks for that. So it's good to know that they're helping to stimulate the market, which is what a lot of entrepreneurs here want to hear. John, could you take the question on tourism? Is there hope? Will it ever come back? What's the outlook?
So it's again, recovery takes a long time. The airline industry has literally come to a staggering halt because I think somebody, was it you or Pius, who alluded to the fact that these modes of business that depend on human migration have been hit hardest. and tourism. But the infrastructure is still there. Human beings being social beings, I think we can safely say it will take time, but it will eventually come. People will be, I mean, Tanzania, across the border, are already wooing tourists to come across to see Kilimanjaro. So human beings being who we are will see that, you know, it's going to be, you know, probably something we can live with. So I have a hope that we still have the infrastructure, we still have the ability to woo people, and Africa especially, it still has that capacity to continue wooing the industry. But it will take time. Recovery will take time, a long time, in the hospitality industry. It will take much longer, as history has proven in the previous days. But human beings, being social beings, will keep moving around sooner rather than later.
Thanks for the message of hope, John. And there's, of course, domestic tourism, which we shouldn't forget. We should
yes.
also enjoy. Yeah, we should also enjoy our own. John, maybe you want to weigh in on that.
Yeah, actually, it speaks to the point I talked about earlier on around creating our own local demand. It go back to that aspect of demand and supply. Everything revolves around those two factors. I think for the longest time during the 2000, Kevin must have alluded to this, when we had these issues around economic meltdown, we had the ability, our own facilities in Mombasa became affordable for us. But as long as there is that need to create that demand, to create that, so coastal region, for instance, that could be their thing that they offer the rest of Kenya. The rest of us, because we come from the cold Rift Valley, we go to the coastal area to enjoy a sunshine. So if we can create that ripple effect domestically within our own self, because people come from abroad, and we used to go abroad to go for holiday. Now we don't need to go there. We can go to Mombasa or go and enjoy ourselves in the Muchiri, for instance. So the infrastructure is there, the opportunities are there, and I think as people grow in confidence to go around, we'll start with our own Jerusalem first before we go to the rest of Samaria and the world.
Thank you very much for that. We now move to Dolphin, and our message to the panelists from the chat is we've talked a lot about the consumer and service industry, so there are other sectors as well we can address. I know there was banks, someone's talked of healthcare, so keep that in mind in your answers as well. So Dolphin, over to your question.
Okay, so my question was, Africa's graph is showing something different in as far as dependency ratio is concerned, yeah? Like in outside countries, there are more people aging out of the workforce, but in Kenya, especially Africa, the graph is showing something different. So what do you think this means for automation, especially in Africa?
Yeah, that's a tough question. So you say the dependency graph is different here.
Yes, it's showing something different compared to other parts of the world.
So meaning a lot of the younger people taking care of the older, or what?
Okay, what this means is, outside countries, there are more people aging out of the workforce than the young people coming to it. But if you look at Africa, there are more people in the workforce than those who are aging out of the workforce. So this means automation in other countries will be rapid. But if you look at African countries, what does this mean
like
for
a killer? Because we have a greater demand for employment.
Yes.
And so if we automate, are we shooting ourselves on the foot?
Yeah.
Yes. So panelists, what do you think of that?
So, I mean, Vincent, if you'd allow me to just make a few comments on that.
Please.
I mean, automation has arrived, digitization has arrived. If we try to fight it, we're going to be left behind. The jobs of the future are not going to be the jobs that we have today. Yeah, the jobs of the future are going to be extremely different from what we're doing today. If 15 years ago I told you that I've used my smartphone to call an Uber, and then once I get to the destination, I booked a room on Airbnb, that would be a statement that you would actually not understand at all. Yeah, because what is Uber? What is Airbnb? And I guess maybe there was some initial version of smartphone available at that time as well. So as you can see, there's a lot that's changing. Types of jobs are changing. Even at PwC, I think our focus is slowly moving away from compliance to probably coming up with applications that would allow people to do their own compliance affairs as opposed to relying on someone to punch in the numbers or to analyze what's happening. Algorithms are getting more advanced. So I don't think we've got that much of a choice. I think what we've got to do is try and move with the trend, try and see how well we can ingrain with this automation and sort of skill our people so that we're taking on jobs that robots can probably not perform. And that's where it's an individual responsibility to try and reskill yourself so that you're actually prepared for this automation or digital age, which has sort of arrived. But I think, I mean, initially as PwC, we were looking at 2030 as where you would actually see a more profound impact of artificial intelligence and automation. But it seems like COVID is going to accelerate this because we're all sitting at home and not unable to interact with each other. So the only thing that can bridge that gap for us is automation. So my personal view is I think it's something we may not be able to avoid, but we need to work to try and embrace it both as employers and as individuals as well.
Thanks for that, Sunny. So Dolphin, it's inevitable. So what we shouldn't try to do is to do what a machine can do, or just like rote kind of stuff. We were made for better, and we should start thinking of what talents do we have that can serve the community somehow, and then build skills in that area and look for who would demand such skills. We need to just keep thinking that way. Where can my skills be applied? As John said, it's a demand and supply game. Which side of it am I on? Where's the demand for the kind of skills that I can then supply? And then you just move from there. So who was next? Was it Ali? I think it was. No, sorry, Gakere. So it's Gakere and then Denzel. Gakere? All right, Denzel?
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon, Denzel.
Sorry, hope you'll excuse the state of my current circumstances. Currently studying for an exam for engineering. So my question was towards, I guess, is there, okay, I'm not really qualified to ask this question, but is it like within the horizon of, is there a conversation regarding, let's say, stimulus checks? And if there is one, could there be a possibility of having people opening up, or having the government instead open up investing or savings accounts, especially with the ease of, Huduma, despite the controversy surrounding it, and then using, parts of the checks to invest in the automation companies through low index funds, thereby solving the issues of velocity of money, stakeholder obligations, reducing wealth inequality, and securing financial longevity in the participation of the citizens, even though that's something I guess the US has missed in terms of, an opportunity to do. I hope that made sense.
Did the panelists get it? I got the first part where you were talking of a stimulus check and whether that would make a difference, kind of like what the US has done in the past. In a nutshell, is that it?
And then if there is a possibility of having stimulus checks, a conversation around now using parts of the checks to open up, let's say, low index funds or savings accounts for citizens who are going to receive the checks. And then thereby now having the whole solving of the velocity of money, having companies now having stakeholder obligations towards, instead of looking towards increasing profits, but actually being now more stakeholder obligated.
Okay, so you have several moving parts in this question. One is clearly stimulus checks and what that would do for the economy and how exactly that would work. So that's the first part. And then how do we get people to think less in terms of profit and more in terms of stakeholders? So those are like the two broad questions as I see them. Any chance of stimulus checks, Sunny? Have you heard of any coming up, Pius?
Oh wait, first of all, like
Any hope in Kenya?
before whoever answers that question answers it, I'd just like if someone could define what stimulus checks are, because I'm not really sure what that is, and I don't think I'm alone. So
Pius will tell you.
Yeah.
And even John, they're economists, so.
Yeah, I think Denzel, you can see the evidence that Denzel is a global child. He's speaking about stimulus checks. We don't have stimulus checks in Kenya. We are having tax holidays, tax break. I think in the rest of the developed economies, they've released big budgets, unprecedented budgets, and with the aim of, putting $1,000 or $1,200 every month in the hands of, families that are struggling due to COVID-related challenges. So that's the stimulus check. But if I hear Denzel's question, he speaks like a young man, and I think he sort of also speaks for Dolphin. The underlying question is around funding ideas that are coming from young people who do not have the capital. Is that correct, Denzel?
So who don't have the capital?
Yes. How does money move from the owners of capital to young people who are coming up with innovative ideas, some of them which are tech related, including automation and digitization? How does money move?
So more or less,
That's what I understand as the underlying theme of your question. And there's a book I would want to recommend to everyone around here to read, because I've read the charts and most of the questions coming around. And this book is called The Customer Funded Business. The Customer Funded Business. If you can write that book, everybody needs to read that book who considers themselves to be an entrepreneur. And the whole idea about this customer funded business is the first person to fund your business is your customer. The first person to fund your business is your customer. A lot of entrepreneurs come to us, owners of capital, yet they've not been validated by their customers. If your customer cannot buy from you, then you cannot get any funding. And the best person to fund your business at that early stage are really your customers. So we tend to jump the gun too quickly and go to owners of capital when the customers are saying, this product, I'm not ready for it. So that's the whole idea. I think there will always be some charitable work, but if you look at the whole universe of capital, charitable work is only a very small fraction. So it's a question of, what are you aiming for? Are you aiming for the big, the big fraction, the biggest chunk of capital, which is looking for competitive ideas that will more than pay for the cost of that particular capital? So I'd encourage the young people, don't think from a charitable point of view, because then your investment universe or the pool of capital that is available to you will shrink significantly. Okay, but there will be other government-driven funds and initiatives that will always be there to fund the youth. But again, the demand is so much that the chances of you being able to access it, because it's so little, the odds are all against you. So for me, I'd say read that book, Customer Funded Business. Make sure your business your business or idea is first of all validated by your customer. Then you can go for funding. And capital has never been an issue. It's never been an issue when you have a great idea. The greatest challenge we face ourselves when you go out there to look for capital is bankable projects. We don't have many bankable projects. We have too few and far between.
And if I may reinforce what Pius has said, anytime you offer true value, you can actually command a price. So anytime you're actually solving a problem that people need to be solved, they will pay you to get that problem solved. So money is not the problem. The problem is getting good ideas that are bankable. So let's all try and read that book. Now Raymond is next. Raymond, you had a question.
Still at the follow-up question to that.
I need to get round to everyone and
no worries, yeah, understandable. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Denzel.
There was Gakero
Raymond.
question initially. I think her mic was having an issue, so she's asked me to ask her question for her, yeah? So her question was with regards to banks and whether the panelists think they are well equipped to survive this period, and if so, how? Yeah, so it's a rather short question, but yeah.
So are banks equipped to survive this period? If so, how? John, you want to take this one?
I think Pius is the right person to handle that one, actually.
Okay, we'll swing it to you, Pius. You're the finance capital guy.
It's a finance guy.
Right.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, we must acknowledge that if banks fail, our economy fails. Banks are the custodians of the liquidity in the economy. So the government is going to do everything possible to keep the banks going. Otherwise, we will no longer just be facing a COVID crisis, we'll be facing a different kind of crisis. And because of their central position as the custodians of liquidity, they have an upper hand compared to other businesses like manufacturing, because your money, my money, somehow is connected to the bank. And the only thing that is going to happen in this particular crisis, and I think the central bank and the government have tried to encourage the banks to be able to lend by reducing the reserve ratios for the banks. I think releasing about 35 billion shillings. It remains to be seen whether the banks will actually release it, because we are in a heightened risk environment, and therefore banks are hesitant to take more risk than already there is. So many banks have been pumping money and will continue pumping money in the government securities, because your most credit-worthy counterparty in this environment is the government. Once the government collapses, then everything else collapses. So I see the banks taking more sovereign risk. There will be definitely heightened, increased NPLs, but still at the end of the day, they stand in a better position compared to their counterparts in other sectors of the economy to survive. One, because the liquidity must pass through them. Two, they've taken quite a bit of risk in the government, especially during the rate cap era. So they could survive their own, but again, you need to go deeper and look at each and every bank. So there will be banks that will be challenged, especially if they are struggling with liquidity and customers are not going towards them. But I do expect banks to survive, and I do expect the government to do everything possible to make sure they survive. We can't stand another Chase Bank.
Yeah, let's hope it doesn't happen. So because we're soon going to run out of time, what I want to do is I want the last 4 people to ask their question first, just very fast, like 30 seconds. And then after you've asked all the questions, then the panelists will respond to all of them. There may be overlaps, and I think that's the only way I can hope to get your questions answered. So, so Raymond, then Stacy, very quick. Just ask your question one after the other.
Okay, so as I'd asked before, how do you view the demand and supply of affordable housing in Kenya within 5 to 10 years? The second question would be, because the construction industry is largely stubborn to technological changes and is mainly reliant on manpower for production, where would you draw the line between automation and human skills? And then, other than integrating management information systems into the construction practice, how else would you come about digitization of the business model when it comes to construction? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Raymond. Stacy, you're up next.
So my question is, because we are all going into, like, we're being encouraged to go digital and all that, how will small scale businesses be able to manage? Because right now, it's like we're all competing for the same customer, you understand? Google by itself automatically filters out the best search results for you. So how will I be able to compete with something like, let's say, Samsung, or with other better established enterprises?
Thanks, Stacy, for your question. Frank Otieno. And after Frank is Elijah Mwaniki.
Yeah.
Okay, Elijah.
Hello?
Yes, Frank, go ahead.
My question was, considering that the manufacturing sector contributes around 10% of our GDP, and part of the big 4 goals was to increase these to around 15%.
Yeah.
But in terms of the workforce, it's mainly manual. But the government, with this COVID in place, we are having to practice social distancing. Besides that, we have reduced working hours. To what extent will this affect the economy? And what are the adjustments that we might need to make as a people? Thank you.
Thanks very much, Frank. We've got Elijah, and then Aaron, and then Emmanuel.
Thanks. This is Elijah. I'm a new student at Strathmore. I've joined MCOM. So it's a good, when I saw this, it prompted me like I'm in the right place. Now, my question is, I see the most hit is on the service industry, and that's what seems like the panel is much aware of. I'm much more into medical devices industry. I work for Johnson & Johnson, and I think our strategies on, we have not gotten a clear strategy on how to move forward in terms of medical diagnosis and surgical devices, how to reach the whole of sub-Saharan Africa.
Hello, Elijah. Yeah, so we've got your question about how to make it reach to all of sub-Saharan Africa. We've got Aaron and then Emmanuel, and then we'll start tackling the questions. So Aaron. Yes, Aaron, go ahead and mute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
A bit louder.
Now that we're in survival mode, we're reverting to like our basic needs: food, shelter, and clothing, but more so food. So how can we create like proper supply chains from an economist's point of view and a supply chains person's point of view? Because there's a sense of friction right now with all the restrictions and all within the country, just outside the country's regions, and globally as a whole. So yeah, that's my question.
Okay, lots of restrictions we're facing, how to overcome that. And Emmanuel.
So Emmanuel asked me to ask his question for him. So I'll go right ahead and do that. Yeah. So basically, Emmanuel's question, which I think is extremely relevant, is so there's been this whole conversation about reskilling, and basically we need to adapt ourselves as individuals to the times. So what skills should we look to? What skills should we inculcate within ourselves to stay relevant within this digital and ever evolving age? Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. So panelists, I'm gonna put you to work. You've got like 5 minutes to answer all those questions. So as quick as you can, whichever question you want to grab. Who wants to go first?
Let me go first. The
Go,
last
John.
question from, I think,
Yes.
yeah, getting cold outside here at my compound. So a quick one, supply chain restriction. I think one of the things that the government has been very cognizant about is to create, to still allow mobility of goods and services. Now, so as long as companies are able to get the right approvals, goods and services, so far, even from Mombasa to Nairobi, Nairobi outside the country, that's still moving. I know it's a bit reduced, but I'm saying this to say that it is not that affected like human mobility, for instance. And I think recently, despite the border friction with Tanzania, that's already beginning to ease off when the two presidents talked. So I want to believe that one of the things that will continue happening is a movement of goods and services within our region. And it goes back to the issue I said earlier on. We need to grow local demand, regional demand, before we can even think of a larger area of demand. And the people who can actually identify that need, it's all about identifying the need and fulfilling it. If you can identify the need within your sphere of influence and create the supply or distribution of it, will not be that difficult. It speaks to the other issue also of the medical supplies. Somebody, I think Elijah alluded to. I'll talk briefly about that. Increasingly, that's why we have a place like KEMSA. KEMSA is our local supply chain within Kenya that basically deals with distribution of medical services. So I would advise people like Johnson & Johnson or any other medical services providers, they need a partnership with a local partner like that, like KEMSA, for instance. And that way you get the interlinkages into this region, and probably do that country by country. Let me leave the time for the rest of the team.
Thanks very much. You've taken 2 questions, and so the rest, yes. Sunny, you want to tackle some of the questions? For some reason, I can't hear you, Sunny, anymore.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Apologies. Yeah. So
okay.
I'll probably tackle the question around what sort of skills should people be focusing on so that they can sort of walk in tow with automation. Yeah. And I think, automation is a gradual process. So as you progress, you'll find skills or tasks that you are performing today may no longer be relevant tomorrow. So as opposed to sort of providing an actual, a very precise skill that one should actually be trying to train themselves on, I think you sort of need to embrace a culture of continuous skilling and reskilling in line with the environment that you have. Yeah, I'm not telling everyone to become a programming expert. I'm just saying, in line with what your environment is, focus on that. Look at what is ahead. Yeah, there's a lot of debate around self-driving cars that's currently happening. What's the future of self-driving cars? How far is it? Is it 5 years away? If it's 5 years away, then clearly you'd see that driving as a skill becomes almost obsolete, right? Yeah. So think of it in that context, in the sense that as the environment keeps changing, have the agility to keep reinventing yourself to the extent that you're always sort of trying to walk ahead of technology or with respect to what technology can do for you. And that is really focusing on abilities that probably technology or artificial intelligence is not yet programmed to handle. And that's why I gave some broad examples like problem solving skills, like what programmers would typically do, So moving away from method-based activities, which technology can easily replicate, to one that is sort of value-adding, solves problems, and even things around emotional EQ. You've got empathy, I mean, no matter what you do, you probably can't get a good HR robot. I mean, you need a certain level of empathy that's coming in, and it's going to be a while before artificial intelligence catches up to that. So it's not a question that has a very fixed answer, but what I can say is, I think the focus should be, let's not have a fixed mindset around the skills that we need to get. Let's be agile enough to continue reinventing ourselves so that we're not caught out or left behind by changes in technology. Yeah.
Thank you. So remember, extra skills you can think of as well are creativity. Okay. And the first one he gave, learning how to learn and how to learn fast. That's always going to be useful in a fast changing world. Pius?
I think I have no choice but to answer some questions around affordable housing, demand, supply, how is it being affected? I mean, when you're building homes and buying homes, that's a normal environment. We are not in a normal environment, so we're in a survival mode. Demand is coming down, and therefore that sector is going to see a significant slowdown. We want to keep cash. Cash is king, and cash is what we need to survive. By the time it takes 239 days to sell a property in Africa, including Kenya. So if you have an emergency and you have to sell a property, it will take a long time, and therefore you prefer to keep the cash. Automation, human skills in the construction sector, I'd say it's not. This is an area that that particular sector is going to be challenged by COVID. Now that so many people, their construction projects have come to a halt. So I'd say these are some of the changes you should watch out for post-COVID environment. Stacy asked a question around SMEs. They are small. How will they survive and compete with the large big firms? And this is my response to you. Remember a company that used to be called Kodak? Remember Kodak Moment? That was the biggest company then, with more than 300,000 employees globally, and today we can't even trace them. My children don't know who that is. So small is advantage in a digital environment. Small is advantage. I saw a very interesting analysis of HSBC Bank, and they had done arrows, and for each service that HSBC was providing, there was a startup that was specializing in it. And the question was, how long will HSBC survive? Because from a service level and customer experience point of view, they were completely outdoing, because they were specialized, and that's the only thing they were doing, and they were doing it from a technology point of view. Mobile lending firms, which you have seen, Tala, Branch, we never used to know them 18 months ago. Now they're everywhere. Everyone in campus knows them. Everyone who is 30 years and below knows them. I know, Vincent, you haven't borrowed from them, but it's because you don't fall in that category. But the thing is this, they are growing faster than our mainstream banks. And small is advantage. That's my advice to Stacy. Use your advantage, agility in SME to compete with them. Somehow in future, you'll get to compete with them toe to toe. Frank asked a question around manufacturing. The big four plans. Those plans are good, but no one plans for a crisis. We are now in a crisis. And I believe Big Four project is not the top of His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta's priorities as we speak today. His priority is how to navigate this great nation beyond this particular crisis. And he will do everything possible to keep all of us alive, even if it is to compromise on the Big Four. So I think from a manufacturing point of view, I see growth only coming through the opportunities that will come through this COVID-19 for now. We need to manufacture the masks. We need to do all these things that we previously were not doing for ourselves, with the borders being shut or left, right, center. That's the opportunity or the silver lining for manufacturing. So when things get back to normal, if at all we'll see that normal, then we'll see big opportunities opening up. And I think the beloved John has already spoken about growing local demand. So I don't want to stop there. I think I've touched on all the other questions.
Yeah, I think we've pretty much answered everyone. And I'd really like to thank this awesome panel. I'd like you all to give some parting words, maybe just 30 seconds parting words that people can walk away with as they try to just digest the wealth of information that you have shared with them today. So I'd like you all to just say something to the audience before I hand over to Kevin. John.
So let me start. Thank you so much, Vincent and Kevin. It's been a great opportunity to talk to young people. I just saw they're actually mainly young guys. I can tell you guys, we are in a brilliant situation right now. The old people don't have the answers. Nobody has the answers, actually. You guys in such a brilliant space to create the answers, to create the solutions, and nobody can put you down. Adaptability and agility is going to take you very far, and small is nimble. I'm sure we'll go great places with these guys. Thank you so much. God bless.
Thank you very much, John. Pius, you go next, and then Vikram.
Yeah, I think I want to say to all the young people that I've seen on this platform, this is your moment. This is the moment you have been waiting for, when everything is available for you. I'm reminded of a young man who has created a website that is updating on these COVID cases, and he's having 30 million visitors on his website every day. Every day, he has 800 million visitors on his website today, and nobody knew him. He's been given a contract proposal of $8 million, and he said no. All things are possible in this COVID environment. You can come from nowhere, and the whole world will know you. This is your moment. Being young is an advantage, not a disadvantage. Thank you. God bless.
Fantastic. Thank you, Pius. And now over to you, Sunny. What are your parting words for this group of brilliant young men and women?
I think what I'll just say is our normal has changed. I mean, what we used to do before, what used to seem natural, what used to seem like our usual routine, completely changed. The marketplace has changed. People are struggling to go to supermarkets, so that has opened up marketplace for youngsters, for those who always felt that the bigger players, because of the resources that they have, definitely had some sort of a competitive advantage. Things have turned upside down. This is the time to sort of try and figure out how you want to reach out to customers who are actually now sitting at home and looking for ways in which suppliers can actually reach them. So this is the opportunity and look at your go-to-market strategy, look at how you want to reach customers, and you almost feel like the playing field is on equal terms now. So no one really seems to have an unfair advantage at the moment. So I think that's what I'll want to stop at. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Sunny. I think all of you guys have been fantastic. You've given us so many insights into how to handle this COVID pandemic and the situation we're in. My parting advice to all of you is keep learning and learn fast. And from your physics, your high school physics, equal and opposite reaction, So when there's something tough coming your way, if you push against it, you become as strong as it is. So you have to have that equal and opposite reaction. So that's why I said earlier, don't waste a good crisis. This is a time when you can grow fast. What took us ages trying to convince lecturers to go digital, we did it in a week because the crisis forced us to. So right now you should be focused on what can I learn, because this crisis is forcing me to grow up and grow up fast. So take full advantage of it. Just learn and rise to the challenge, and you'll find that you're stronger because of having had this challenge than if you hadn't had it. So it's been an absolute pleasure moderating this panel, and I'll now hand it over to the convener of this panel session, the chair of Strathmore Business Club, Kevin.
Okay, so thanks a lot, guys. So one, I'd like to make a correction. I am not the sole convener of this particular panel. I have a great team behind me. And yeah, a lot of people doing a lot of things behind the scenes who you might not necessarily have had the chance to see today. So first off, I'd like to thank everyone for pulling up for this session. I think we had a great turnout. And secondly, I'd love to thank the panelists. I mean, you guys did an amazing job. I have learned a lot. And I think the parting shots were, I mean, they were quite something as well. And I loved what Pius said. This is our moment. You know, this is the time for us to come out and do amazing things and show guys that, yeah, this is our word now. Yeah, and I love the optimistic attitude as well. You know, this COVID-19 gift kind of thing. So a lot of people have been looking at this as well, more of a problem. And I'd like to say that I've been on more of Pius's wing in that I've actually looked at this as, I mean, like, there's a lot of things that I was not able to do previously because I was perhaps a lot tied up a lot in other things and busy with other things. And yeah, like, sure, the COVID-19 pandemic came and messed up a lot of my plans, but I mean, I made new ones, and I mean, this was one of them, for instance, and I think this turned out pretty well. So, and I've been able to do a lot of other great things as well. So yeah, I mean, I love to extend that challenge to everyone as well. It's look at your sphere of influence and look at whatever the hell you could fix inside it. And yeah, perhaps something good will end up coming out of that. So we've gotten a lot of great insights from, I mean, all the panelists. So Sunny, Pius, John, Dr. Ogutu, you did an amazing job at moderating the panel. So I'm not really sure I could put all of my gratitude into it. Finding individuals such as yourselves isn't the easiest thing. I mean, scheduling a phone call with you guys was one of the hardest things to do, really. So, you call Dr. Ogutu every time, it's line busy. So, it's not the easiest thing to reach you people. You're extremely busy. So I really appreciate the fact that you took time out of your days. I mean, a whole 2 hours of your time is certainly nothing we should take for granted. So I hope everyone is listening as well. These are extremely busy individuals, and the fact that they took time out of their days to come and, give this gift to us is definitely something that we should not take for granted in the least. So I'd love to thank everyone for showing up. Now in the chat, I've put in basically, our social media handles. So I'd request that all of you please go and follow those particular handles so you can see whatever else we're up to as a club. So what we'll do about this particular recording is we'll send it out to everyone in the school. So what we've been doing is we've been sending it individually to people's emails. I think we'll just put the link so that everybody in the school can have access to it. For the panelists, I'll send it to you individually. So so I think that sorts that out. And if you are not a member of Strathmore University and are attending this panel and would still like access to the recording, we have our social media handles over there. So you could just, reach out to us on one of them, and that way we could sort you guys out. So I think with that, that's enough for my parting remarks. Once again, I'd love to thank everyone for showing up. I think we've had an amazing session, and I think that's it. I mean, seeing the comments blowing up. I saw one particular comment that actually made me had to shut down my camera. Is SBC taking over Strathmore? So I was smiling too much, so I had to stop the video. And so that.
If you can do a better job than me, I'll step aside, man, guys.
I'm not sure about that right now, but I can tell you that I will try. Yeah. or rather we will try. So yeah. So I think with that we could bring the session to a close, unless there's anyone else who feels so compelled to say something to the panelists and to the moderator as well. Yeah, we could bring the session to a close. Unless there's, I saw someone called Terry put up their hand, so I'm not sure if it's one of those, you know, fidgeting with the raise hand button kind of things, or there was actually something that someone wanted to say. So I mean, if anyone feels like they want to speak right now, yeah, as Pius said, this is your time. So yeah. Okay, so I'm going to take that. There's someone. Oh, great. Okay.
My name is Stella. And I'd like to just personally thank the panelists and yourself and those who are working from the background for putting this together. We are very grateful.
Thanks again. So that's I'm always happy to hear positive feedback. And I saw someone in the comments ask whether we'll be curating more such sessions. So yeah, that's essentially the idea. We're not planning to slow down. So yeah, you'll definitely be seeing a lot more such things from us. So yeah, I think with that we can bring the session to a close. Everybody's now free to leave, unless you have anything burning that you might want to get across, including the panelists as well. So. Thanks a lot for your time. We do not take any of this for granted. Thanks a lot, people. Yeah.
Thank you, Kevin. It was our pleasure, like I said. And Sani, Pius, John, great being with you guys. So let's stay in touch.
All right. Thanks, Vincent.
All right. Take care. Back to play with the kids, huh?
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Bye.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye, Kevin, and the rest of the team.
Yeah.
You guys rock.
Bye. Thank you.
That was amazing.